Welcome everyone to the first field hearing of the Transportation and Infrastructure Subcommittee for the 118th Congress. And the first field hearing the Senate has held here in Flagstaff in more than 30 years. I want to thank everybody who made this hearing possible, including the committee staff, the staff here at the City of Flagstaff, the staff of the Army Corps Los Angeles District, and all of our witnesses. I've had the honor of serving on the Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works since I was sworn into the Senate about 3 years ago. And last year I was named chair of the Transportation and Infrastructure Subcommittee. This subcommittee is responsible for considering legislation and conducting oversight on issues related to federal transportation and infrastructure programs, including overseeing all of the civil works projects carried out by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Once every 2 years, my subcommittee negotiates and passes a bill called the Water Infrastructure Development Act, or WIRDA for short. In advance of considering the next water infrastructure bill, I wanted to make sure that this subcommittee left Washington, D.C. and came to Arizona to hear firsthand from local Army Corps officials and community leaders about how the Corps is working to support Arizona's water infrastructure. As everyone here in Arizona knows, water is a critical issue for our continued prosperity. And we have a number of unique water infrastructure needs here in Arizona, which I hope we'll learn more about at today's hearing. As everyone knows, Arizona has been in a drought for the last 20 years. And this is the worst drought that this planet has seen, this part of the planet has seen, for nearly 1,200 years. Responding to these drought conditions requires an all-hands-on-deck approach. That means that we need federal agencies like the Army Corps working in close partnership with state, local, and tribal leaders. I think at today's hearing, we're going to hear a lot of success stories. I hope we do. For example, I championed the creation of the Section 595 Rural Arizona Water Infrastructure Program along with my colleague, Congressman Stanton. This program helped small and underserved communities in Arizona partner with the Army Corps to build drinking water, water conservation, flood control, and wastewater infrastructure. Programs like this are a great example of how the Army Corps can make investments in Arizona that will respond to long-term drought conditions. After we created this program, the first recipient of funding was the Pasco Yaqui tribe. I'm honored that the chairman of the Pasco Yaqui tribe, Peter Ucapicio, is here today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for being here. And I look forward to hearing from him about the tribe's water conservation project and their work with the Army Corps. I also look forward to speaking with the district commander from the Army Corps Los Angeles District, Colonel Andrew Baker, whose office has worked hard to make this new program a success. Thank you for doing that. But the challenges posed by drought conditions don't just impact our drinking water infrastructure. Prolonged drought conditions here in northern Arizona have led to some of the worst wildfire seasons in recent memory. And the burn scars that these fires leave behind, that when it rains during monsoon season, parts of Flagstaff see significant flooding that threatens lives and livelihood and damages property. That's why I'm glad to be joined here by Flagstaff Mayor Becky Daggett, who will talk about how the city's partnership with the Army Corps on the Rio to Flag project, and this project is going to significantly reduce the flooding risk through the central Flagstaff region. So thank you, Mayor, for being here. I'm also glad that we're joined by Supervisor Alberto Peshlikai to discuss Navajo County's partnership with the Army Corps on the Winslow Levee project. I recall getting on the phone with the Army Corps and the Office of Management and Budget in December of 2021. It was less than a month after the bipartisan infrastructure law had been signed into law to advocate that this Winslow Levee project get fully funded. We were successful. And in fact, the Winslow Levee was the first project in all of Arizona that got funding from our infrastructure law that we had spent months negotiating. Right now, the entirety of the city of Winslow lies within a floodplain. But the Winslow Levee project will rebuild the flood control infrastructure along the Little Colorado River and permanently protect Winslow from flooding. I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of our witnesses today about the importance of these projects. Making sure that the next water infrastructure bill gives the Army Corps of Engineers the tools it needs to respond to the challenges we're facing here in Arizona is a priority of mine. That's why over the past few months I've been working on legislation called the Drought Resilient Infrastructure Act that gives new authorities to the Army Corps so that they can take on more projects that help Arizona and the West respond and adapt to drought conditions. I'm planning to introduce this bill when the Senate is next in session. Making sure that the Army Corps has the tools that they need to support Arizona communities is a priority of mine. And today's hearing is an important step forward to making sure that we're doing just that. So with that, I'd like to start out and introduce our witnesses. But before we begin with witness introductions, I want to go over some logistics for this hearing today. This hearing is going to be split into two separate panels, one made up by a federal witness, Colonel Baker, and the second made up by three non-federal witnesses. I will introduce the four witnesses before recognizing Colonel Baker as our federal witness for his opening remarks and questions. And then we'll bring up, when we're done with that, we'll bring up the three non-federal witnesses. So with that, let me start by introducing Colonel Baker. Colonel Andrew Baker is currently serving as the 64th Commander of the LA District of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. In this role, Colonel Baker leads more than 750 military and civilian personnel in Southern California, Arizona, Nevada, and Utah. This means that Colonel Baker and his team are responsible for all of the Army Corps projects in Arizona. All these projects that we're going to discuss today, he's responsible for them. Before this assignment, Colonel Baker served as the Chief of Operations for Joint Task Force Bravo at Soto Cano Air Base in Honduras. Colonel Baker began his Army career at Fort Hood, Texas, serving as a platoon leader and company executive officer in the 8th Engineer Battalion, 1st Cavalry Division. Colonel Baker earned a bachelor's degree in civil engineering at the U.S. Military Academy and holds master's degrees from the National Defense University, the University of Virginia, and the Missouri University of Science and Technology. Mayor Becky Daggett is the mayor of Flagstaff, Arizona. She was elected to the Flagstaff City Council in 2020 before being elected mayor 2 years later. Mayor Daggett has spent over 20 years protecting open space, enacting growth strategies, supporting local businesses, and strengthening the support for the arts and education throughout, not just here in Flagstaff, but throughout northern Arizona. Mayor Daggett holds a master's degree in sustainable communities and a bachelor's of science in public relations from Northern Arizona University. Supervisor Peshlikai serves as the Navajo County Supervisor for District 2, and Supervisor Peshlikai served as the Tribal Government Relations Director for Navajo County prior to being elected to the Navajo County Board of Supervisors. He was elected in November 2020. And Supervisor Peshlikai began working for Navajo County in 2008 as the Public Works Department Planning and Zoning Secretary, and then served as the Transportation Project Manager for the Office of Public Works. Supervisor Peshlikai has been a lifelong resident of Navajo County, residing in the Navajo Nation community of Indian Wells. Chairman Yucapicio is the chairman of the Pascua Yaqui tribe, which is a federally recognized tribe with a reservation southwest of Tucson, Arizona, with 22,000 members. The chairman first ran for tribal council in 2000, and since then he has served as treasurer, vice chairman, and now 4 terms as the chairman of the tribe. The chairman is one of 12 children. He attended Tucson High School and Pima Community College. Also wanted to briefly acknowledge a few other elected officials from Arizona who are joining us today. The mayor of Winslow, Roberta Cano, is in the audience. The vice mayor of Flagstaff, Austin Aslin. Council members Miranda Sweet, Jim McCarthy, and Deb Harris from the city of Flagstaff. Also, Flagstaff City Council member Lori Matthews. Council members Jim McLean and Melissa Nelson from the city of Winslow. Coconino County Supervisor Lena Fowler, Coconino County Supervisor Patrice Horsman, and Navajo County Supervisor Fern Benali. So thank you to our witnesses for joining us today, and thank you for everybody that showed up for this hearing. And I'm going to start this hearing by recognizing Colonel Baker for 5 minutes of opening remarks. Colonel Baker.
Chairman Kelly, I am honored to testify before you today at this Arizona field hearing regarding U.S. Army Corps of Engineers projects in small, rural, and underserved communities in Arizona. Through the Army Civil Works program, the Corps works with other federal agencies, tribal nations, state agencies, and local governments, as well as non-governmental organizations to develop, manage, restore, and protect water resources, primarily through the study, construction, and operation and maintenance of water-related infrastructure projects. The Corps is helping to advance the administration's environmental justice goals by working with Indian tribes and other underserved and disadvantaged communities to help them address their water resource challenges. One avenue has been the Los Angeles District's work to deliver environmental infrastructure projects to small, rural, and underserved communities in Arizona through our Water Resources Development Act Section 595 program. The Corps has three main mission areas, which are flood and storm damage reduction, commercial navigation, and aquatic ecosystem restoration. Some Corps projects also provide ancillary benefits such as municipal and industrial water supply or recreation. I would like to highlight two specific flood risk management projects in Arizona that illustrate how the work of the Corps of Engineers can benefit small, rural, and disadvantaged communities. The Rio de Flag at Flagstaff and Little Colorado River at Winslow projects. These projects will help the cities of Flagstaff and Winslow manage their flood risks. I will also discuss the Passamaquoddy Waterline project near Tucson, which is an environmental infrastructure project within our larger 595 program. The Rio de Flag project is a few steps from these council chambers. This project will benefit the city of Flagstaff and surrounding communities to include underserved and disadvantaged populations. This project includes flood channel modifications, bridge enhancements, a detention basin, and flood walls that will substantially reduce flood risk. Three features of this project are complete. The Los Angeles District completed the Butler Tunnel and Clay Avenue Wash. The city of Flagstaff completed the Thorpe Road Bridge. Remaining features include additional channels and box culverts designed to convey floodwaters away from the city. This is a complex project that the city of Flagstaff is incorporating in concert with other environmental infrastructure projects. We expect to complete the initial phase of our design for the next phase of this project, a reach that extends from Clay Avenue Wash Detention to Butler Tunnel in September 2024. This project will require the city of Flagstaff to acquire certain lands and easements and negotiate a construction maintenance agreement between the city and Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad. The second effort I would like to highlight is the Little Colorado River at Winslow Flood Risk Management Project. In 2006, due to the condition of a locally constructed levee on the western bank of the Little Colorado River, FEMA decertified this levee. This had a dramatic and immediate effect on an already predominantly underserved and overburdened community, causing property values within the floodplain to plummet and stymieing economic growth and development for the past 18 years. In fiscal year 2022, Congress appropriated $2.5 billion in bipartisan infrastructure law funding for inland flood risk management projects. Of that amount, the Department of the Army allocated $65 million to this project. I recently had the opportunity to visit the project area with some of our partners here today, along with other City of Winslow and county officials. Being there and seeing firsthand the impact that this project will have on the community is astounding, and I'm honored to serve with a team that will make it a reality. The first items that we will accomplish include an update to the project topographic survey, a geotechnical survey, and we will model the hydrologic and hydraulic conditions to refine project design characteristics to prepare plans and specifications. This brings us one step closer to construction. With respect to the Paskayaki project, we executed a project partnership agreement with the Paskayaki tribe in September 2021. This tribe has since completed the design, received federal reimbursement for this work, and expects to award a contract for construction in fall 2024. This project will allow the tribe to reduce its dependence on water currently imported from Tucson, reducing costs for an important cultural hub within the community. The estimated cost for this project is $1.9 million, which includes federal cost share of $1.47 million. The project will support the historically underserved tribal community. The Paskayaki project is an example of a Section 595 project. WRDA 2022 amended WRDA 1999 Section 595 for environmental infrastructure projects, increasing the authorization of Arizona projects from $150 million to $200 million. This program can help underserved communities in Arizona to improve efficiencies in water use and stewardship and to reduce dependence on imported water. The Corps and the LA District specifically is excited and honored to be able to partner with the state of Arizona and our local sponsors on these great projects. Thank you, Chairman Kelly. This concludes my statement. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today and look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Colonel. When I first started coming up to Flagstaff as a candidate in 2019, it's when I first learned about Rio de Flag, and it's been one of my top priorities to get this done. It has such an impact on so many people. So Colonel Baker, thank you for your testimony and your leadership at the LA District. I'd like to take some time here to go through each of these projects we're focused on today, and then maybe discuss some broader core projects and priorities in Arizona. So first, let's talk about Rio de Flag. I understand that you are very close to being able to award a construction contract and break ground on the project. I want to find out what are the barriers that remain to beginning construction. In your testimony, you mentioned that you have to update the project topographic survey, geotechnical survey, hydrologic and hydraulic. Do you expect any surprises in those? And does that relate to when you can begin construction of phase one?
Sir, we don't expect any surprises with those two efforts. I'll say that the two main aspects of the project that need to be completed before we start construction are, one is real estate related. This is related to the city of Flagstaff's requirement to obtain real estate access or ownership for all property that the contractor needs to access during construction. And part of this is the negotiation and execution of a construction maintenance agreement between BNSF and the city. The second part is any change to the plans and specifications based on working through the real estate issue. We had a great meeting on January 23rd with all parties to include BNSF and talk quite a bit on the way ahead for this. And I personally feel confident that these won't be an issue for a September delivery.
Any imminent domain issues? You're going to have to take control of the property when individuals maybe don't want to give it up? Is that part of the issue?
Sir, that remains to be seen.
Can you share a little bit about what the schedule is going to look like once work begins?
Yes, sir. Once work begins, we expect the first stage of construction to take about 4 years to finish. So it'll be about 3 years of construction and then 1 year of a warranty period. The second stage of construction will start no later than finishing the first stage of construction.
So stage 2 would begin potentially in about 2028. Is that a possibility?
Sir, I would say no later than 2028.
And then when do you expect the entire project to be finished?
So right now we don't have a good feel for how long construction of phase 2 will take. So I can consult with my team and get back to you on a more accurate answer.
And what's the difference between phase 1 and phase 2?
So there's 6 total phases or segments of construction. So the first 3 phases are actually complete. Phase 1 is the Clay Avenue Wash Detention Basin. Phase 2 is the Butler Tunnel, and phase 3 is Thorpe Bridge. So phase 4, 5, and 6 remain to be constructed. So what we're calling stage 1 includes phase 4 and phase 6. So it's a little bit confusing.
Okay, stage 1 is phase 4 and 6.
That's correct.
So everything before that is already done.
Everything before that is already done. Yes, sir, that's correct.
And once stage 1 is completed, what benefits do we expect the city to see?
Sir, the total benefit will be available upon completion of both phases. However, there will be an immediate benefit upon completion of phase 1 for the communities that are adjacent to that part of the construction.
Is there a way to quantify, like, how much more water is Rio de Flag going to be able to, handle in a flood? Is the capacity going to go up by a certain percentage?
Sir, I can say that the flood risk to those communities and businesses within the first phase will be lower, but I don't have a number. I can certainly consult with my team and provide that for you.
That'd be great if you can get back with us, also for stage 2 and when the entire thing is complete. And then what's the plan for bidding out the contracts on each stage of the process? And is the plan to do a, spec and then build, or a design and build with the same contractor?
Sir, I'll answer the first question first. We'll put out a request for proposal. We'll receive proposals from firms that are interested in doing the work, and then we will select a firm that meets or exceeds the qualifications outlined in the contract, and also a firm that will deliver the project at the lowest price technically acceptable. Because the design work on these 2 phases is nearing completion, we've decided to use a design bid build approach as opposed to a design build approach.
Design bid build. So they'll do the design first, they'll bid on the project. You'll select, figure out who is actually capable of doing the job, and then go with the lowest bidder.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Do you ever do best value to the government as opposed to lowest bid within the Army Corps? Is that something that's ever used in a bidding process? I'm just curious. I've flown on spacecraft that was built by the lowest bidder, so I'm a little sensitive to the...
Yes, sir, I understand that, certainly. Also as a individual who's jumped out of perfectly good aircraft, you want to make sure those perfectly good aircraft are perfectly good.
Right.
Sir, I can certainly provide more information on that, but I don't have the information to answer that directly.
Okay. In 2022, the City of Flagstaff received an infra grant courtesy of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law for the Downtown Mile Transportation Project. While this funding does not directly go to the Rio de Flag project, can you share more about how this funding for related city projects has enabled the entire project to move forward?
Yes, sir. I believe the city can best answer this. However, I am very aware that there are many projects involved in the downtown mile that require a great bit of synchronization in order to happen, to include R2. So I'd imagine it's helped quite a bit.
And then my understanding is that the coordination with BNSF has been critical throughout the planning process for Rio de Flag. What challenges has the Corps experienced when dealing with the railroad? And do you have any unresolved issues with BNSF?
Sir, we feel at current time we've got a great partnership both with the City of Flagstaff and with BNSF on these efforts. I mentioned our January 23 meeting a little bit earlier. We had executive level personnel to discuss the challenges that we've got in front of us. Really, the challenges at this point are securing, with BNSF, are securing the construction maintenance agreement, which is tied directly to the real estate issues we're working through. However, we feel that we have a way ahead to get this complete by September.
So they have to move some of their infrastructure in order to enable this. Is that, could you just describe what that is?
Yes, sir. Really, at this point, the biggest looming issue is allowing the contractor to gain access to areas where the contractor needs to work. So some of these lands belong to BNSF. Others belong to private citizens and businesses and such. So that is the biggest issue. With regard to the construction maintenance agreement, there are certain provisions within the agreement that the Corps have to satisfy the contractor's means and methods of doing business, such as operating within a specified distance from a railroad track, these sorts of things. So it's at this point it's just coming to an agreement on the nuances of how to work around BNSF, I would say. Okay.
So you still have some of that we've got to resolve here before moving forward.
That's correct, sir.
Okay. Section 902 of WRDA in 1986 set a requirement that for the Army Corps that any project, where construction costs exceeded their congressionally authorized level by more than 25% would need to be reauthorized. So I've got a couple 902 limit questions for you. So what does it mean when you hit that 902 limit, that 25% above the estimate? What does it mean to the Army Corps? And is it likely that Rio de Flag will hit this 902 limit anytime here in the near future?
Sir, as you mentioned, the 902 limit is basically it's calculated by inflating the authorized cost to current dollars and then adding another percentage. And this amount represents the 902 limit, which is a limit that the project cost cannot exceed, and it's set by law. Regarding the likelihood of Rio de Flag hitting the 902 limit, due to rising construction and real estate costs, we would say that there's a strong chance, we don't know for sure whether it will, but there is a chance that it will exceed the current 902 limit. And this will require project reauthorization for a larger amount.
If that chance, if you see it coming and you expect it, please let our office know, because then we're going to have to go through and reauthorize whatever the additional amount is. So let's just stay in touch on that topic.
Yes, sir.
All right. So now I want to turn to the Winslow Levee project. As you know, we provided the Army Corps additional funding in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law to begin work on this project. And since the Army Corps received funding in 2022 for this and other types of projects, what steps have been taken to begin work on the Winslow Levee?
Sir, we've done quite a bit, and we're very proud of our work that we're doing with our partners on this project. We signed the design agreement in July 2023, and since then we've used funds to initiate the pre-construction engineering and design phase. There are several things that we've done in this effort. We've completed the update to our project management plan. USACE has finalized the survey scope of work and provided this to Winslow, and they're going to award the prime contractor for this survey work here sometime soon. We've initiated the review plan. We've initiated geotechnical drilling and invasive program plan, and we've initiated the recertification of the project costs, and that's on schedule to send to our cost certification team in March.
How long do you think so you don't expect this all to be done, all that survey work, review plan, geotechnical drilling, and the reevaluation of the costs done by March, did you say?
No, sir. Not the whole package. That was the cost certification.
And how long do you think the whole package is going to take?
So we expect the entire effort to take between 2.5 and 3 years. We've still got some big ticket items remaining. We've got our hydraulic and hydrologic modeling, and also culture and environmental coordination. And all of these efforts will feed the final plans and specifications for the project.
And once all of that is done, that 2.5 years, which is essentially the pre-construction, engineering, and design phase. So maybe we would expect here sometime 2027, beginning of 2027, to start construction. How long do you expect the construction to take?
So right now, our plan for that is for it to take approximately 4 years from when we award the contract.
And then is this going to be a design build or a design bid build?
So for this, we're still early in the process. So we have some room to consider different acquisition strategies, to include design build, to include design bid build. So yes, sir, we are evaluating design build as an option to possibly accelerate the project timeline and to maintain budget.
And are there any opportunities to try to maybe keep it under budget and get it done early because we are so early in the design phase?
Sir, I can't speak to that specifically, but I can definitely engage my team on that one to give you a better answer.
Yeah, since we have time, it would be, it'd be great if we could come in under budget on some of these. And obviously, as we've discussed here, the reason this is so critical is that much of the city of Winslow and also portions of the Navajo Nation lie within a floodplain. This means that anyone that gets a mortgage is required to have flood insurance on the property, and it can mean thousands of dollars a year. And in some cases, the flood insurance payment for some homeowners is more than their monthly mortgage payment. So right now, we estimate about 4 years after we start building. So we're looking at about 6.5 years from now that these homeowners could expect their mortgage payments to come down. That's a long time. I understand we got to do this right. We're trying to correct something that wasn't constructed right the first time. So it's important to get this right instead of getting it early. But just be mindful that, this is years of residents here, having these out-of-pocket costs that for many is really putting us a lot of stress on their budgets. How has the BNSF issues for the Winslow levee gone compared to Rio de Flag?
Sir, I would say it's going well with this project. It's a crossing. Navajo County has already started coordination with BNSF. They've completed a preliminary engineering assessment. This is really going to help our efforts going forward. We at the Corps have begun working with our Transportation System Center out of the Omaha district on this, and we have, as an enterprise, a lot of experience working with railroads and a lot of experience working with BNSF specifically. So we're confident on the way ahead.
Do you know where their headquarters is? What state?
Yes, sir. It's in Texas.
It's in Texas. Okay. The dreaded salt cedar, one of my favorite topics. Like, how did this happen? I understand a portion of this work is going to be removing salt cedars along the bank of the Little Colorado River. And these salt cedars present a problem in so many areas. And it's not only in Arizona. I think it's in New Mexico, has issues as well. Could you explain that for this project, why it's so important to remove salt cedars?
Yes, sir.
And then how do you do it?
Yes, sir. Very simply, salt cedars are a barrier to conveyance of floodwaters. So we need to remove them by any means from the flood channel.
So they just slow the flow of water downstream.
That's correct. That's correct. Yes, sir.
And then in drought conditions, when we actually need the water, they also consume a lot of water.
Yes, sir.
So we have two reasons to kill them.
Yes, sir. So the way we'll go about this, we'll remove them via mechanized equipment. We'll push them up to create temporary stockpiles, and then load them in trucks and take them to a site for offsite disposal.
And in the method you use to remove them, do they tend to grow back?
Sir, I know it is a very hardy plant, and from what I understand, the way to remove it is you've got to completely remove it down to the root. So there are some steps that we're going to take in operations and maintenance to ensure that they don't come back to the best of our ability.
I know there's a lot of research into other methods that are not fully baked yet, on how to do this. Hopefully at some point, that'll be an option for you as well, there'll be something that might be easier and more effective. So the federal share of this project was fully funded thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law. Do you foresee any additional funding being needed for the project?
Sir, at this time, no, but we're updating our cost estimate this summer, and we'll continue to do so every 2 years now that the project is funded. So we will keep you informed as soon as there's an indication that this might be the case.
All right, Colonel, next I want to discuss the Rural Arizona Water Program, also known as Section 595. In WRDA 2022, secured an additional $200 million to carry out this program, which is Section 595 of the 2022 WRDA. Colonel Baker, can you explain how the Rural Arizona Water Program is different from other projects that the Corps has carried out?
Yes, sir. So the 595 program's primary objective is to provide design and construction assistance to non-federal sponsor interests for carrying out water-related environmental infrastructure and resource protection and development projects. These projects include wastewater treatment and related facilities, water supply and related facilities, environmental restoration, and surface water protection and development. So typical Corps projects undergo extensive and comprehensive evaluation to determine if there is a federal interest to implement, and they require specific project authority. The 595 program allows local governments to evaluate the benefits of a project, and if it complies with the program requirements and funding is provided, we can build the project. Also notable is the fact that these projects are done under a 75-25% federal cost share.
Have you seen a lot of interest from communities in Arizona for these?
Sir, we've seen a whole lot of interest. We continue to receive letters, phone inquiries about the projects. At our last tally, we have exactly 17 funded projects as part of the 595 program in Arizona. We've signed 2 agreements, and we have 3 ready for signature in the next few weeks, and 1 more that we'll have in the next month.
And how many of these have begun construction? Any of them?
Sir, the Pasco Yaqui tribe will be our first, and that's they hope to award a contract this fall for that.
Great. We're going to talk a little bit about that project later. Can you describe the process that a local government here in the state of Arizona that's interested in receiving Section 595 funding should follow?
Yes, sir. I would say the first step is to contract the LA, to contact the LA District Corps of Engineers. So if an interested party opens up a web browser and types in 595 project Arizona, the first search term will be our website, which describes what the 595 project is, who to contact, and it also talks to a monthly open house that we hold, a virtual open house. And through contacting us, we can provide information on whether or not the project meets criteria, and also help in initial stages of gaining authorization for this project. The next step is to submit an official letter of interest, and after that we add the project to our list of potential projects. After the final step is receiving an appropriation from Congress, and after that we move ahead with our partnership agreement. That normally takes about 7 to 8 months to execute.
So from beginning to end, how long do you think it should take if one gets approved and gets the necessary funding to begin construction?
Sir, is your question to go to construction?
Yes, yeah. The timeline to get to construction.
Sir, it really depends on the project, but I'll tell you that we have become much more efficient in our delivery of this, really just since we started. There's some challenges that we were dealing with at the beginning of the program. Challenges kind of on both sides, on the sponsor side and our own side. On the sponsor side, I would say many of the sponsors that we were working with just did not have the experience of working with the Corps, and did not necessarily understand the processes and procedures to get to an authorized project. From our own side, when we started, we didn't necessarily have the expertise to provide this to the prospective sponsors, but we've come quite a long way, and we've built a lot of momentum with each new project. So we feel good about accelerating this timeline.
So why don't we have the chairman of the Pascua Yaqui tribe, Chairman Yucapusio, join us here. I think we're going to have. Actually, no. Give me a second here. But the Pascua Yaqui tribe. Can you give just some updates on that project specifically?
Yes, sir. So this is a waterline project. It was our first 595 project in Arizona. We signed the PPA on this in 2021, and the design is complete. And we expect the Pascua Yaqui to award construction for construction in the fall of 2024.
And do you have any lessons learned from working with the tribe that you can apply to other projects?
Yes, sir, absolutely. As I mentioned, we've had some challenges getting this program started, but we've built a lot of momentum. I think misunderstanding the amount of time that is involved in educating our own staff and the sponsors on the requirements for the 595 program, and successfully negotiating many 595 agreements concurrently was an issue at the beginning. But as I mentioned, we've gained a lot of momentum in delivering this program.
Well, please let my office know if there's anything we can do to help you effectively implement the program. And then finally, I want to talk a little bit about flood control. Flood control curves was a topic of a hearing we had in Washington. Can you explain what role the Army Corps plays in setting flood control curves for certain federally regulated reservoirs. And just for the folks in the audience that's watching, the amount of, we have to keep a lot of extra space in reservoirs in order to accommodate floodwaters. So we don't get flooding, so reservoirs don't overflow and flood communities. But we've been in this drought for 20 years, and those flood control curves are rather old, and we potentially need to update them. So can you talk about the Army Corps' role here in flood control curves?
Yes, sir. USACE is mandated to develop water control plans for all federally funded built dams that were purpose-built for flood control. So these include dams like Painted Rock, Alamo, and Roosevelt here in Arizona.
And talk about what happens when water enters into the flood control space.
Yes, sir. So when water enters into the flood control space, we work with downstream communities and water districts to release the water whenever possible in a way to maximize capture. Our first priority is flood risk management always, but very often we're able to release it in a way that maximizes capture.
And how often are flood control curves updated for any particular reservoir?
Sir, every 10 years at a minimum, or when there's a modification to the flood control structure.
And when you do that, do you ever take into consideration drought or water conservation conditions?
Sir, yes, we do. Water control plans, we update, consider the impacts of drought, and what else can be done to support increased water conservation if the project is capable of providing such support. As I mentioned, flood risk management is our number one priority. The extent to which water conservation, we do evaluate it, depends on the original authorized purpose of the project and whether that includes water conservation.
One example I think of note here is Roosevelt Dam stores water for Phoenix metro area. You know, last year due to increased snowmelt, which is good. I mean, we got a lot of extra snowpack in the Colorado, in the mountains, which is where the water comes from to go into the Colorado River. So that was a really positive thing. But last year, due to increased snowmelt, which we wanted, SRP had to release more than 300,000 acre-feet of water unexpectedly out of Roosevelt Dam because it got into the flood control space, and we've got to make sure we don't put Phoenix at risk. That's a lot of water, 300,000. To put it in perspective, we get about 2.8 million acre-feet from the Colorado River every year. It's not all of Arizona's water, but it's a lot of it. And 300,000 of it just had to be released. And this is water that could have been used for drinking water, but instead just flowed downriver. Eventually, a lot of it just winds up, you know, in Mexico, and we don't ever benefit from it. So, Colonel, I understand the Corps is working with SRP to update the flood control manual for Roosevelt Dam. What can you share about the work with SRP to get these curves updated?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we are. So right now we're working with SRP to process what's called a minor deviation request through our South Pacific division. So this is one level up in the chain of command. So what this will allow us to do is to allow for water encroachment, extra water in the flood control space late in flood season when the flood risk is low, and then gradually draw it down in order to allow for downstream communities and water districts to catch it without compromising flood control operations. We'll implement this for about from 3 to 5 years. During this time, we'll gather data to best allow us to improve water conservation without compromising flood risk management. But we'll have the secondary benefit of providing additional opportunities for water capture. We'll use this information to complete to update the water control manual. So this is the testing phase for eventually updating the water control manual.
And then when do you think the manual will be finalized? What's your hope here?
Sir, normally it takes about 3 years, and this runs concurrently with the minor deviation. So it could be anywhere from, I would say, from about 3 to 5 years.
Well, let me just say one thing I'm hoping that my legislation will do is to give you clearer authority to take into consider the drought conditions when we update the flood control curves. And if we can find ways to save drinking water, make sure we're not wasting water in the wet years like we had last year, this is going to help us have water for when we come back to a drier year, which is actually what we expect this year. Usually when we have a big snowpack in the Rockies like we did last year, historically the following year has been, just extra dry. There's no real science behind that. That's just been the history. So hopefully that'll change here in the later part of February and in March. So now what I'd like to do is bring up the second panel here. So thank you, Colonel. I really appreciate your testimony. Thank you for making the trip. And thank you for all the hard work you do for our western states that are suffering from a climate-driven event that we haven't seen in nearly 1,200 years. So thank you for your work in helping us.
First, my privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mayor Daggett, Supervisor Peshlikai, and Mr. Chairman, why don't you join us? We'll start with opening remarks for each of you. Mayor Daggett.
Chairman Kelly, first and foremost, welcome back to Flagstaff. We're proud to host you here at Flagstaff City Hall once again. We appreciate your service on the Senate Environment and Public Works, and especially as the chairman of the Transportation and Infrastructure Subcommittee that has jurisdiction over the Water Resources Development Act, which is so important to our community and many others in Arizona. We are also thankful to you for chairing this important field hearing today to hear perspectives on Army Corps of Engineer projects in small, rural, and underserved communities. We also want to thank Army Corps Regional Commander Colonel James Hendura and District Commander Colonel Andy Baker for being here today. We have been working closely with the Army Corps of Engineers since 2001 on the Rio de Flag Flood Control Project, and we continue to push to complete what will be the most transformational infrastructure project in the city's history. Although it has been a long road to today, we are making considerable progress and have passed many important milestones. 3 major project components have been constructed to date, including a large detention basin on the Clay Wash Reach, a bridge structure in the upper reach, and a large culvert under Butler Avenue. We are approaching final plans and specs that will allow the project to be advertised for bid. We're working towards acquiring the real estate from property owners and businesses to construct the project, and BNSF Railway is also a large landowner in the project footprint. We are engaged in complicated negotiations with the railroad on several construction management agreements for project approval and property rights. Our goal is to have this project out to bid in early 2025 and have shovels in the ground by spring 2025. We received the final $52 million of federal funding for construction in FY 2020. Thus far, $84 million in federal funds have been committed to this project. To date, the city has contributed $22 million as part of its cost share. When this project is completed, it will have a transformational effect on our town. First, it will remove over half of our residents and over 1,500 structures from the floodplain, including Northern Arizona University and, yes, City Hall, where we are sitting right now. Second, it will allow for the first time in many people's lifetimes, including our former esteemed mayor and your current Northern Arizona Director, Coral Evans, to make improvements to their houses and businesses in the Southside neighborhood that they haven't been able to make in decades because of the simple fact that they lie in the floodplain. Third, it will eliminate costly flood insurance requirements for many residents. Finally, it will allow for more than $1 billion in economic development that will be a boon for residents and visitors alike. In short, this project will transform this great city. Regarding this project, we have one final request. It is our understanding that you have once again inserted a provision in WRDA 2024 that will waive the 902 limit or the maximum cost cap for this project. We ask that you fight for inclusion of this provision as we may be bumping up against our limit due to inflation and the high cost of materials and real estate acquisition. Expediting the process greatly benefits these projects that are overdue for delivery and can't afford any additional delay. I would also like to highlight another important Army Corps program that you were instrumental in bringing to Arizona, the Section 595 or Arizona Environmental Infrastructure Program. The city was one of the first in the state to send a letter of interest to the Corps and be placed on the priority list for this program. In early 2021, we were awarded two 595 projects known as the Downtown Flood Lateral Tunnel and W.F. Killip Elementary School Regional Flood Detention Basin. We are excited to announce that we have signed our first project partnership agreement with the Corps on January 23rd for the Downtown Lateral Project, and we expect to sign the Killip Basin PPA very soon. We ask that you work to increase the authorization for the 595 program to $400 million in WRDA 2024 to help communities such as ours. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, we have a long and very important relationship with the Army Corps of Engineers. We are currently working with them on three important projects that will benefit the city. The $122 million Rio de Flag Flood Control Project, the $1.2 million Downtown Lateral Project, and the $1.5 Killip Detention Basin Project. We value our relationship with the Corps, and they have been very responsive to our needs. Is everything perfect? Certainly not. We would like to move these projects from inception to completion in a much more expeditious manner. However, many of these projects, especially the Rio de Flag, are very complex and complicated. Despite these setbacks in our partnership with the Corps, we have always been able to figure out a way to move city projects forward together. Senator Kelly, thank you again for holding this important hearing in Flagstaff to discuss Army Corps projects. We thank you for your leadership on this committee and the work you have done in the U.S. Senate that benefits our amazing and diverse community here in Flagstaff, and I am happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll now recognize Mr. Chairman for 5 minutes.
Members, I'm honored to be here as our humble tribe. We also thank the mayor and also the tribes from the north and the other 22 tribes that live in the great state of Arizona. For us, my name is Peter Icupiso. I am the chairman of the Pascoyaqui tribe. I am here to testify about our work with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on our Water Resources Development Act, Section 595, Environmental Infrastructure Project. and thank you for this opportunity. My tribe is federally recognized tribe with a small reservation near Tucson, Arizona. Even though we have been around for a very long time, we were officially recognized in 1978. Today, we have more than 21,000 tribal members who live on our reservation and in our tribal recognized communities across Arizona. Our main focus as a tribal government is providing housing, public services, economic opportunities for our tribal members, but like many other tribes here in the West, our tribe has limited access to potable water supplies. Our reservations do not have any surface water, and access to groundwater is extremely limited. Our tribe receives potable water service from our neighbor, the city of Tucson, under an intergovernmental agreement we entered in 2011. But Tucson caps the amount of water it delivers to our reservation at 900 acre-feet per year. It's not enough water. With the development of much-needed housing for our tribal members and other tribal facilities, we're on a course to exceed our water delivery limit with Tucson in only a few years. As a result, we are doing everything we can to manage the water sources we currently have in the best way possible. The Section 595 program is helping us do that. As you know, the Pascua-Yaqui tribe was the first entity in Arizona to receive 595 program funding from the Army Corps, and we are using this funding to construct a non-potable water line to provide water to our tribal wellness center, and we will irrigate our ball fields and public park. This encourages healthy lifestyles for our tribal members. Currently, our tribe is using potable water from the city of Tucson to irrigate the wellness center and directly reduces the amount of water we have available to meet our other water needs on the reservation. However, once the water line project is built, we will be using non-potable water for this outdoor irrigation, and this will conserve about 50 acre-feet or 16 million gallons of potable water each year. Freeing up this amount of potable water will allow us then to build another maybe 375 homes on the reservation for our Yaqui people. The implementation of our 595 has not been without challenges, but we hope that by illuminating these, it will help inform the committee and the Corps about improvements to the 595 program, which would be helpful. The tribe recognizes that administering the 595 program in Arizona is a new responsibility for the Army Corps and has had to work on developing the necessary administrative infrastructure and facilitate the efficient and timely completion of the 595 projects. We have had delays working with the Corps on our 595 project over the past few years, but we are happy to know that Colonel Baker is working hard at the Los Angeles District to establish the administrative foundation that is needed to move these projects forward. Currently, we are preparing our bid documents for construction in the project, and we hope to break ground in September this year. However, inflation has significantly increased our construction costs, and our initial 595 funding amount is now insufficient to complete the project. We will be requesting additional funding from the Corps to hopefully help us to make up the cost difference. We are also facing a challenge in securing the water filtration systems we need due to the war in Israel, where the systems are made. And we also know that it will be difficult to secure contractors who are already working in so many other federally funded infrastructure projects. As a disadvantaged community with a small 595 project, our tribe is disproportionately affected when the challenges occur as they drive up our overall project costs, which then reduces our ability to deliver our important tribal governmental services to our Yaqui people. Given our experience in the 595 program over the past few years, we have some observations and recommendations for Congress and the Corps. My written testimony submitted for the record has much detail about each of these recommendations, but here are a few in a handful. The Army Corps should keep working to improve its administrative operations to be responsive to the needs of the 595 program guarantee in order to avoid long project delays. For transparency, we recommend that the Corps provide regular notices of funding opportunities on the grants.gov website so that small and disadvantaged communities become more aware of the programs. Number three, the 25% cost share requirements for Indian tribes should be eliminated, or at minimum, the tribes should be allowed to combine other sources of federal funding to meet the cost share requirement, such as from the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Bureau of Reclamation. Number four, the overall charge by the Corps for each project should be allowed to be reduced the amount of funds available for actual construction of the project. The overhead should be added on top of the actual project costs and should be 100% funded by the Corps in the 595 program. Otherwise, small, rural, disadvantaged communities will have difficulty bearing these additional costs. Those are some of the few, and we thank you very much and many blessings for your efforts in trying to help all our tribes and all our towns and cities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Supervisor Peshlikai.
Good morning, Senator. I am Supervisor Peshlikai, representing the Rural District 2 on the Navajo County Board of Supervisors. On behalf of Navajo County and the City of Winslow and the State of Arizona, I deeply appreciate the opportunity to provide you and the subcommittee testimony on the county's perspective as the non-federal sponsor for the Army Corps of Engineers Lower Colorado River and Winslow Flood Mitigation Project, or the Winslow Levee Project, as it is known in Navajo County. While the Winslow Levee was constructed decades ago, the critically important need to repair the dates back to the mid-2000s. 2008 was a defining year in the early life of the project. The Federal Emergency Management Agency decertified the levee, which financially impacted residents, businesses, and property owners in the area. More on that in a moment. And Navajo County and the Army Corps of Engineers signed a feasibility cost share agreement that initiated a 10-year-long feasibility study, which culminated in the recommended plan that is moving ahead today. Before providing an update on where the project stands, I want to touch very briefly on the significance of this project and its importance to the community of Winslow and the northeastern region of the state of Arizona. First, locally, once the levee is repaired and certified in the region of the state of Arizona, once the levee is repaired and certified and accredited by FEMA, residents will realize financial relief from the approximately $15 million in costly flood insurance premiums they have been forced to endure since the decertification of the levee in 2008. Relatedly, without the essential life of safety infrastructure project, nearly every one of Winslow's homes, businesses, and schools and key services are in harm's way from dangerous flood events. Regionally, completion of the Winslow Levee project is a key to unlocking economic growth in northeastern Arizona. There is a prime for development and construction once the flood mitigation concerns are greatly reduced, as I-40 and the BNSF Railroad provide robust transportation infrastructure throughout the region. You'll find more specific project impact information in your handout. And so today, the project's technical pre-construction, engineering, and design work is underway. A joint project development team of our non-federal and Army Corps partners have been meeting regularly and reports the initial survey, topography, and then the geotechnical analysis is moving forward as planned. Relatedly, another team is working through the process that will determine the most efficient acquisition strategy, design build, and design bid build for construction. For constructing the project. The Army Corps of Navajo County are acutely aware of the project that has received 100% federal funding for design and construction, and the expectations are high for delivering a completed project expeditiously. While we understand the Corps has its traditional chain of command process and strict public engineering requirements and the regulations to follow, in every interaction we've had with the Los Angeles District Command, both the county and the Corps have expressed a strong commitment to meet or exceed those expectations. I am confident that the preliminary engineering, design, and construction phase process progress should significantly project challenges arise. Our team will work to solve them at the level nearest the problem. Should that not be enough, my expectation is that both sides will work in good faith to escalate issues for a quick chain of command resolution, draw on appropriate resources and expertise at the local, state, federal level, and collaborate with our state and federal congressional leadership as necessary. With that, I conclude my remarks, and thank you again for the opportunity to provide testimony to the Transportation Infrastructure Subcommittee on the Senate Committee of Environmental and Public Works as it relates to our essential life safety infrastructure project in Winslow and the importance of optimizing our partnership with the Army Corps, which is so necessary for delivering a project that means so much to the Winslow community in northeastern Arizona. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Let me start with a few questions for Mayor Daggett, and then I'm going to go to Chairman Yucapicio and then to Supervisor Pesacai. Mayor Daggett, as you discussed in your testimony, the Rio de Flag project has the potential to be transformative for downtown Flagstaff. Can you explain how Rio de Flag will fit in with other projects the city's working on, like the Downtown Mile project or the upgrades to the Downtown Transit Center?
Thank you, sir. The common element with these community projects is the proximity to the main line of BNSF and trying to alleviate the barrier that the rail corridor poses for transportation, multimodal, and flood control needs as our community has grown. Packaging these projects together has allowed us to leverage our federal funding for grant opportunities like the infra grant we were awarded for the Downtown Mile in 2022. And thank you, Senator Kelly, for your support in this grant application. It also allows for a more streamlined process to design and construct these projects together to reduce impact on BNSF and Amtrak operations. Reconstruction of so many points across the corridor enabled us to attract BNSF into a partnership so they could also plan improvements of a third main line track during construction, which incentivized them to become a substantial funding partner. When we started the Rio de Flag, that project stood on its own in trying to get under the rail corridor, and the financial burden was too great on that single project. Spreading the effort across so many beneficial community projects like the Downtown Mile and the Lone Tree Overpass has really been the key to our success in managing funding and the ultimate delivery of the Rio.
As I said in the beginning of my testimony, Rio de Flag has been one of my highest priorities for northern Arizona, for the Flagstaff area. Mayor, before I go to the chairman, what are some things that Congress and my committee, EPW, Environment and Public Works, in particular should know? Is there anything else we should know about Rio de Flag? And are there any ways that we can help the Army Corps make sure this project is a success?
Mr. Chair, thank you so much for that question. We're often focused on engineering, cost, and schedule, but this is a project that is helping real families and businesses, families that have been in our community for generations and have always known flooding inside their homes. With your support, we are very humbled that we get to do something in our lifetime that makes these conditions better for our community. And in terms of what you can do to make sure this project is a success, 902 limit waiver support, 595 project program support, and future grant funding support would be the three things that we would ask for.
I got one question about something you said in your testimony. You said it will remove over half of our residents and over 1,500 structures from the floodplain. So depending on how you read that, will there still be, is it half of the residents of Flagstaff will no longer be in a floodplain? Are the other half still in a floodplain, or were they never in a floodplain? Big difference.
Big difference. I'm looking for that in my comments.
Like, does it help everybody who is currently in a floodplain get out of a floodplain? I see some nods in the audience.
Along the Rio de Flag, the flood control project, those residents that are within that project area.
Which is half of the residents of Flagstaff. Sounds like it is.
Christine, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you, because I wanted to see if we have more work to do when this is done. It sounds like this is going to go a long way to fixing this flooding problem.
Absolutely, sir.
All right. Ms. Chairman, PCO, I want to start by asking you about your work with the Army Corps on the Rural Arizona Water Program, what you were talking about in your statement. So can you explain how the project you're working on with the Army Corps fits into the broader goals of water conservation on tribal land, and how does it fit into broader water conservation goals that we have here in Arizona?
Years, Pasco-Yaqui Tribe has lived in southern Arizona all the way to Mexico. We have lived around the Santa Cruz River Basin for a long time. We actually helped Scottsdale. We were some of the tribes that helped build all the canals and all that. So we're pretty good at water harvesting and moving water around and doing just like the other tribes. Particularly in this project, the cap water line is right next to us, but you can't access it because it belongs to CAP. This will enable us to tap into that and water our wellness, our fields and stuff like that. We're also looking at water conservation efforts as far as gray water and using that and utilizing that for other areas in residential. But what we're doing right now is we're sort of leasing water from other tribes, and then we're also having IGA with the city of Tucson to provide potable drinking water. And that would help cut the cost of that, which would then, for more than maybe 1,500 tribal members that are looking for housing, would allow us to build a few more houses to house them in affordable housing. We have a few projects down the road that we're looking at. We have 2/3 of all Yaqui members living off the reservation. So when they decide to come in and live on the reservation, then we'd be able to provide a home for them. And for us, I think the average national is like 1.5 kids or something like that. We're at about 4. So we're going to grow no matter what. And you have to start planning not only with BOR, with the city of Tucson, with everybody, the drought contingency plan. We go to those meetings and are aware of priority waters and everything. So we're on board. I'm trying to figure out how do we survive and use as little water we can that's potable and use other water resources. That's where we're at as a nation, as a tribe.
And in your testimony, you mentioned that, you said the amount of 16 million gallons, I believe, of potable water will be saved because now you'll take non-potable water, use it for irrigation, and we'll be able to save, and that's 16 million, which is probably about on the order of maybe about 50 acre feet or so.
50 acre feet.
Yeah, a year. So that's a year. So, and we can save that water. And if we wind up in a, more challenging situation, we'll have that water banked.
One of the biggest epidemics that we have on Pasco-Yaqui tribe and reservations, maybe tribes have the same that we do, is diabetes. So we created wellness centers so they can go and check their glucose. We went to this Freestyle Libre now that I have that monitors you all. So all of this is trying to keep people healthy. But the wellness program, we have more than 1,200 kids playing softball, baseball, coaches pitch and all that. And the whole effort is to try to keep them moving and healthy and live longer. And instead of having like an HMO and all that stuff, start early with them and start them going on healthy living, healthy eating. There's also a kitchen in that wellness center that shows them how to eat a lot healthier and all that. So all of this is part of that whole feeling of helping each other out. And we also have a lot of non-tribals that work for us, and they also use all our fields, all our facilities. When you start looking at gyms and basketball and everything, we also have the Boys and Girls Club that is located there, that also all of this would enhance all of that, and kids would want to go there and exercise and be part of something. So it's not just the way you're looking at, well, they're going to water a field. No, it's not. It's all connected to healthy living and extending. The average Yaqui male lives about maybe 58 years old, 60. That's it. Substance abuses, all kinds of other things, foreign alcoholism, everything. We're trying to extend that. The women in our reservation live to about 15 to 20 years longer than we do.
Wow.
So they're doing something right.
Yeah.
And that's why the women are way stronger than we are, guys. Sorry about that. But it's trying to keep the healthy family going, and that's what this would do.
My wife, Gabby Giffords, used to always say, strong women get things done.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, you noted, I wrote down 4 different things I think we could focus on. Certainly the Army Corps, could focus on, advertising opportunities.
Yeah.
That's easy. And regular funding opportunities. We'll look into, for tribes, you mentioned maybe eliminating the 25% cost share. We can certainly take a look at that. And also allowing parts of other federal sources of money to be used, intermingled, to be part of the 25% cost share. We could take a look at it. Can't give you any promises. But we will, Joe and I will circle back with the committee and with my colleagues in the Senate and see what we can do there. And then my final questions are for Supervisor Peshlikai about the Winslow Levee project. We touched on this before, but can you give a bit more of an explanation of how the decertification of the existing levees that were protecting Winslow have harmed the city of Winslow and surrounding communities? And if you have any stories about property owners and costs with flood insurance, I would appreciate if you could share them there in our final time here.
Thank you, Senator. Yes. We've heard from many homeowners and property owners who reside and do business in the floodplain about the burdensome costs brought about by the failing existing levee. Blight homes are unable to be renovated due to FEMA's 50-50 rule. Any renovations over 50% of the value and of the structure would be required to be raised out of the floodplain. So this type of additional cost construction is cost prohibitive to homeowners. In addition to that, many homeowners are required to obtain flood insurance that nearly doubles their existing mortgage. And as I've touched in my testimony, these residents have endured approximately about $15 million in costly flood insurance premiums since the decertification of the levee in 2008.
And what percentage of, if you know, what percentage of downtown Winslow is in a floodplain? Is it all of it? Like if you're standing on any corner in Winslow, Arizona, are you in a floodplain?
Based on the meetings that I've been on and commentary that was rendered, if you're standing in the corner of Winslow, Arizona, about half of that would be in the flood zone. So I would consider over half of the city of Winslow would be within that floodplain.
And then parts of the Navajo Nation are also affected by this Winslow Levee project. And what benefits do you see that Navajo communities will have when this is completed?
Thank you again, Senator. Yes, and particularly the Bird Springs chapter and loop outside of Winslow has been historically affected by the flood events, especially when the river overtops the roads, making them impassable into the city of Winslow. With the rehabilitated levee system and flood reduction benefits that go with it, tribal residents will have a more dependable access to health services, emergency services, groceries, and other necessities. And then in addition to that, considering the most recent, with the visits that we had with the current colonel and then past colonels and other administrators and past congressional leaders, as a result of the movement that this project has received, we were able to coordinate with our Department of Emergency Management at the county to connect them with members of the Army Corps of Engineers that they met back in May 18th and 19th of last year, along with agency recommendations for short, medium, and long-term solutions for the community. And that was also known as the Arizona and Northwest Silver Jackets coordinator, Mr. Stan, who provided that technical assistance. So as a result of that, the Army Corps project with the Navajo Nation Department of Water Resource and the Bird Springs are developing an emergency action plan focusing on flood response as a result of the movement of this project to help the nation on that part too. So that's additional commentary that I'd like to add. Thank you.
And is it fair to say that this project has helped you and maybe changed the way that you've worked with the Army Corps and built a stronger relationship?
Yes, we've maintained a strong partnership with the Army Corps, and continued communication is key with that. And then also invitation and staying up to date, especially with meetings virtually or either with on-site visits as well.
And I think it's important to point out that Governor Hobbs and the Arizona State Legislature has also stepped in here to ensure that this project is completed. Is that your sense?
Yes, that is correct, and we're so grateful for Governor Hobbs and other members of the state legislature and the city of Winslow for their proactive and support and advocating and lobbying to ensure that the funding that we had received last year helps fulfill that 100% contribution.
Well, thank you. You know, this is a team effort, getting all of this stuff done. From any of the three of you, we only have about 3 or 4 minutes, and I've got to close this hearing out, but is there anything else that you wanted to let us know that you didn't have an opportunity to say? Mr. Chairman.
I thought everybody's having flooding problems, so do we. Our whole reservation sits on the 100-year floodplain along the Brawley Wash. There are many days that our children cannot attend school or go to school. We were supposed to have infrastructure and design on the south end of our reservation with detention basins, and we've never gotten there or the right amount of funding for anything. So the tapping into this water for not using potable water is good, but also we had a bunch of sheet floodings that comes from the Black Mountain of Tohono Nation, and it all floods into our reservation. So every single year, you're talking, how does it drive up costs? Well, because we live in the floodplain, we have construction costs are higher to build an average 3-bedroom home just to make sure it's not flooded when these rains start, the monsoons.
Well, Mr. Chairman, let's work together on trying to resolve that issue as well. Mayor?
I would just like to point out that the Rio de Flag is but one watershed that's being improved for post-wildfire flooding mitigation. In addition to the Spruce Wash and the work that the county has done east of town in Doney Park, and all of these projects complement each other to provide flood mitigation to many areas of our community that are impacted or that could see future flooding and spread the benefit across the region. And so that is to say, to express gratitude to our federal partners, our state partners, our county partners, for all of this work to make these projects work well together and protect our communities.
Thank you, Mayor. Supervisor Pesicai, anything else we need to know?
Yes, Senator. First, I'd just like to extend an appreciation to yourself and other members of the congressional leadership at the federal level, as well as with your staff, and not only your staff, but other staffers with your predecessors as well that have continued to support our efforts with the City of Winslow, and then also their appreciation to the City of Winslow for their continued advocacy and support for this project. So again, thank you very much on behalf of the Navajo County Board of Supervisors, the residents of Winslow, as well as the region as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. In closing, I would like to thank our witnesses for appearing before us today and sharing their perspectives on the Army Corps Water Management Authorities. Also want to thank Colonel Baker as well. I want to thank my staff for all the hard work they put into this. Joe Russell here, who knows these issues much better than I do. And I want to say a special note of thanks to the staff here at the City of Flagstaff for all of their assistance in making today's hearing run smoothly. So thank you for that. And before we adjourn, I've got some official housekeeping I have to do. So I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the hearing record 2 things. A statement by Senator Tom Carper, Chairman of the Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works, and a statement for the record from Mayor Roberta Cano of the City of Winslow. Without objection, those will be entered into the record. Senators will be allowed to submit written questions for the record by February 29th, 2024, which is 2 weeks from today. If any questions are submitted, we will compile those questions and send them to our witnesses, who will ask to reply by March 14, 2024. And with that, noting the time at 12 noon exactly, this is my former Navy attack pilot in me. The hearing is adjourned.